Lead singer and songwriter for the Rolling Stones and one of the most influential figures in rock and roll, the legendary Mick Jagger. Thank you very much.
I just don't say to drink you off my mind.
When most legends fade away, the story ends with a predictable fortune passed quietly down the family tree. But Mick Jagger has never done anything the predictable way, not in his music, not in his life, and definitely not in his legacy. So when the world learned what he plans to leave behind, it didn't spark the celebration his fans expected. It sparked tears, not because the Rolling Stones frontman failed to take care of the people closest to him, but because he made a choice so staggering, so wildly Mick, that it flipped the entire idea of rock star wealth upside down. This wasn't a simple will. It was a final encore that left his family stunned, emotional, and wondering how one man could rewrite the rules, even after he's gone. Join us as we reveal his last will and why it's so shocking. For more than 6 decades, Mick Jagger has strutted across the world's stages as if they were extensions of his own pulse. He was born in 1943 and named Michael Philip Jagger by his loving parents. He didn't just become the face of the Rolling Stones, he became a symbol of relentless movement. A kinetic force who refused to fade with age, time, or expectation. The world knows of his iconic strut, the impossible stamina, and the unmistakable voice that turned a skinny London kid into the architect of rock's most enduring empire. Behind the volume of his public persona, though, lies a quieter story. One that is only now coming into sharper focus as he enters the later chapters of an extraordinary life. What happens to the empire he spent his life building after his demise? With an estimated net worth hovering around $500 million, Mick Jagger's financial legacy is as imposing as his cultural one. It's a fortune carved out through non-stop touring, chart-topping albums, film ventures, business projects, real estate holdings, and one of the most valuable music catalogs in history. For most celebrities, such a fortune would form a predictable endgame involving a straightforward inheritance passed down to children and grandchildren, divided neatly or placed in trust for future generations. But Mick Jagger has never operated according to the standard rulebook throughout his life. In recent interviews that sent shockwaves through both the music world and the tabloids, he surprised everyone by saying he does not plan to leave the bulk of his enormous wealth to his children. He suggested that his 8 offspring, ranging from grown professionals in their 50s to a young son still in primary school, do not need $500 million to live well. And more than that, he hinted that much of his estate might instead be diverted toward charity or causes he believes will do some good in the world. It was a statement as startling as any he has made on stage, and one that caught even longtime fans off guard. For a man with a sprawling, multi-branch family and a lifetime of relationships that shaped him as much as fame did, the idea of leaving behind a fortune that may not go directly to the people closest to him is as dramatic as any rock star scandal, but far more consequential. The headlines called it shocking. Others called it admirable. His family, depending on who you ask, may see it as something far more emotional. Before we talk about the details of how he plans to divvy up his wealth, let's first take a good look at how he built it up and perhaps see why his plans may have touched some nerves. How Mick Jagger built his fortune. Before anyone can understand why Mick Jagger's inheritance plans are so controversial, they first have to understand the sheer scale and complexity of the fortune in question. He didn't become one of the richest musicians on earth through a single revenue stream or by coasting on early success. His wealth is the result of relentless work, sharp instinct, and a strategic mind that often gets overshadowed by the theatrical swagger of his stage presence. His fortune didn't happen by accident. It was engineered, piece by piece, over the course of more than 60 years. At the core of his wealth is the band that refused to burn out. The Rolling Stones weren't just successful, they redefined what longevity in rock music looks like. While many of their contemporaries collapsed under the weight of fame, infighting, or excess, the Rolling Stones turned survival into an art form. They toured when other bands aged out. They released new music when critics claimed they were finished, and they kept drawing stadium crowds long after most of their peers retired. Their tours have consistently ranked among the highest-grossing live shows in history. Whether it's the Voodoo Lounge tour of the 90s, the A Bigger Bang tour in the 2000s, or the more recent No Filter tour, each trek brought in hundreds of millions of dollars. For Mick, who receives income not only as frontman, but also as co-writer on countless hits, these tours became financial generators. Even in his late 70s and early 80s, he was performing for crowds the size of small cities, often earning more in a single night than most artists earn in a career. While touring has kept the cash flowing, the Stones' music catalog is their best asset. Decades of hits like Gimme Shelter, Start Me Up, Angie, and Paint It Black continue to generate revenue through streaming, licensing, radio play, and film use. Unlike disposable pop hits, these songs have become cultural fixtures, which means they keep earning year after year. He has long understood the importance of controlling that catalog. For years, he carefully negotiated ownership rights, ensuring the Stones maintained significant control over their music. In an era when many artists have sold their publishing rights for massive payouts, he has indicated he has no intention of selling the Stones' post-1971 catalog, a decision that keeps long-term income flowing and preserves cultural influence. Beyond music, he built a private real estate empire worth hundreds of millions. He owns homes in London, New York, Moustique, and other exclusive locales, many of which have appreciated significantly over time. These properties aren't just residences, they're investments. Several have been rented out, used for filming, or restored as part of a long-term asset strategy. In some cases, his properties have increased in value simply because of their association with him. He also expanded into film and media through his production company, Jagged Films. He explored acting roles, produced documentaries and features, and participated in business collaborations ranging from tech partnerships to branded products. None of these overshadowed the music, but they diversified his portfolio and protected him from relying on a single revenue source. Everyone loves real values, so let's take a more detailed look. For decades, estimates of Mick Jagger's net worth have hovered between $500 million and $600 million. But insiders familiar with his portfolio say the reality is likely even higher. Unlike most aging stars, Mick didn't fall into the trap of overspending, didn't drown in legal disputes, didn't lose money in reckless investments, and he managed his finances with the same discipline he applied to his legendary stage performances. As we established, while many artists sold their music rights in the 2020s, Mick and Keith Richards did not. Their combined catalog is worth an estimated $1 billion, and Mick's stake alone represents a significant share. The royalties from their music will continue to pour in for generations, earning tens of millions a year. The Rolling Stones remain one of the highest-grossing touring acts in history. Their tours from 1989 to 2020 alone generated over $2 billion. His cut ensured a long-lasting stream of income, even as global touring slowed. From London townhouses to Caribbean estates to a chateau in the Loire Valley, Mick's real estate portfolio spans continents. Some properties were acquired cheaply in the 1970s and are now worth staggering amounts. his real estate holdings alone are estimated at $200 to $250 million. Also, over the decades, he acquired rare art pieces, first-edition books, museum-grade antiques, and historical items from the early days of rock culture. Experts suggest this collection could be worth tens of millions, possibly more, if auctioned. From songwriting credits to film licensing to brand partnerships, Mick built a financial machine that continued growing even when he wasn't on stage. Put together, his personal fortune, and that's excluding the catalog ownership shared with Keith, sits somewhere around $600 million to $750 million. Even in the world of extreme celebrity wealth, that number hits hard. When you combine decades of touring, an evergreen music catalog, a savvy real estate strategy, and carefully chosen business ventures, his massive fortune becomes clearer. It wasn't luck. It wasn't a one-hit wonder windfall. It was sustained, intentional, and multidimensional. This makes his stance later in life more shocking. Understanding the kind of wealth in question, the truth is, Mick Jagger knows exactly what his wealth represents. He built it, he protected it, and now he may choose to direct it somewhere entirely unexpected. Mick Jagger's decision on why his children won't inherit his billions. To understand why Mick Jagger's family might be navigating a profoundly emotional moment, you have to understand the philosophy behind them. This wasn't a sudden decision, nor was it a reflection of tension within the family. In fact, Mick had been dropping hints for decades that he viewed money, fame, and legacy through a lens almost no other superstar ever adopted. For years, he quietly told interviewers that he didn't believe in great loads of money being handed down to the next generation. He insisted firmly, publicly, and more than once, that children grow stronger when they work for something rather than inherit it. It was in 2023, during a conversation with the Wall Street Journal, that he said the line that would later echo around the world. "My kids don't need $500 million to live well. Come on." At the time, people laughed. They assumed it was a throwaway comment, one of those lines celebrities say to appear grounded. But those who knew him best understood he meant every word. He wasn't a man who performed humility, he practiced it. His children, now ranging from their early 20s to their 50s, were accustomed to this mindset. They grew up knowing that financial security was theirs, but wealth without purpose was not something their father would ever hand them. He encouraged every one of them to pursue individual careers, passions, and ambitions. And they did. Still, knowing a philosophy and living the reality of it are two very different things. It's expected that when the full details of his final estate plans are revealed following his demise, even his family, prepared as they believed they were, might feel a moment of shock. Mick Jagger didn't just plan to limit what his children inherited, he planned to give away most of the fortune entirely, and not to a few neat charities, nor to a foundation that quietly disappears into the accounting books of the wealthy. His plan was something bigger, stranger, more powerful, and unmistakably Jagger. It was a decision built around history, accountability, and the idea that the world he grew up in and profited from still needed repairing. Something so massive that even the people who loved him most couldn't help but react with tears, but not out of anger, not out of disappointment, but out of the overwhelming weight of what he was trying to do with the fortune he spent 60 years earning. Where Mick Jagger says his fortune might go, charity over kids. Mick Jagger's most provocative statements about his wealth don't just challenge the usual ideas about rock star privilege, they flip them on their head. Rather than treating his fortune as a family heirloom, he's openly spoken about redirecting it towards something he sees as more meaningful. In a revealing interview with the Wall Street Journal, he made it clear he doesn't intend to sell the Stones' post-1971 music catalog, and if he ever does, the proceeds won't necessarily go to his children. He intends to float those funds for philanthropic purposes. You may do some good in the world. His remarks have touched many widely. He explicitly suggested that in the future, his share of the Stones' back catalog may bequeath not to his 8 children, but to charitable causes. Several publications picked up on the significance of this. The Standard noted that he said he would rather the profits go to charity. The Independent, meanwhile, reported he has hinted his catalog might be donated to charity rather than distributed to his offspring. For someone who built one of the most iconic music empires in the world, this isn't just generosity, it's a conscious philosophy. He has long expressed discomfort with the business side of the music industry, admitting in interviews that he doesn't really like business. But now, when he does talk about money, it's not just to protect or grow more of it. He's thinking about a different approach that aligns with a growing trend among the ultra-wealthy, which is leaving enough, not all. Instead of providing a never-ending windfall, he seems intent on balancing familial obligation with social impact. As he puts it, the aim is not simply to pass on wealth, but to use it to do some good. That doesn't mean his children will be left out entirely, but their inheritance may take a form that's less about cash and more about trust distributions or a modest share, while the greater portion of his fortune could be directed toward causes he cares about most. Whatever the final structure, it's clear his financial legacy is not just about money, but instead a statement of his values. Behind the scenes, those closest to him say the moment the full structure of Mick's estate plan becomes clear might be a moment when emotions overflow. All 8 of Mick Jagger's children have grown up with immense privilege, yes, but not with passivity. He raised them on the belief that wealth is a tool, not a guarantee, and that real identity should come from one's own efforts. He often said he didn't want his kids to become trust fund zombies, and they didn't. They are musicians, dancers, actors, entrepreneurs, artists, and professionals with their own paths. Still, hearing that their father might formally commit hundreds of millions to charity instead of the family is likely to shock them deeply, not out of greed, but out of awe. It will be on a scale, and so massive it defies imagination, knowing that their father isn't just thinking about them, but thinking about the world. Mick's partner, ballet dancer Melanie Hamrick, has been described by those close to the family as incredibly grounded. She has never publicly demanded money, control, or influence. Her priority has always been her son, Devereaux. So when Mick explained that most of his future catalog wealth might go to charity, she wasn't upset, but she did reportedly tear up at the magnitude of it. Not because she felt excluded, but because she understood that this was his way of leaving a message to the world. His art mattered more than his bank account. His legacy was global, not just genetic. It's hard not to cry when the person you love chooses philosophy over fortune in such a sweeping way. His older children, especially those from his earlier relationships, felt something heavier. This wasn't just an estate plan. It was their father finalizing his legacy. For kids who grew up watching Mick Jagger command stadiums like no one else in history, this felt like the quiet beginning of an ending. A man who seemed immortal was suddenly drawing boundaries that only mortality requires: wills, trusts, stipulations, and instructions. One of the family friends put it simply, it wasn't the money that made them cry, it was the reality of time. Despite the sensational headlines implying his children were angry or devastated, the truth is far more delicate and more emotional. The family's tears weren't the spoiled kind. They weren't about losing wealth or lifestyle. They were about witnessing Mick Jagger, the father, the partner, the patriarch, make a decision so enormous, so globally minded, and so unmistakably him that it left them stunned. A decision that said, "My legacy isn't just for my family, it's for the world I lived in." His life hasn't been without controversy, not by a long shot. From the early decades of rock culture to the political movements he intersected with, he has always been aware of the world beyond the spotlight. Those close to him say the causes he hinted at funding weren't random. Music education, especially for kids who come from communities like the one he grew up in. Arts access and cultural preservation, because he knows firsthand how the arts can change a life. Global health and humanitarian initiatives are influenced by decades of traveling the world and seeing inequality up close. Environmental protection, a cause the Stones have quietly supported through various partnerships. In the end, his family understood that his intentions were not a rejection. It is a message. A final statement from a man who changed music, shaped culture, outlived eras, and remained fiercely independent until the end. His family cried because the choice was powerful. They cried because it was emotional. They cried because it meant something bigger than inheritance. It meant goodbye to the idea of Mick Jagger as just their father. He was choosing to leave the world, something he believed mattered more. What do you think of his choice to step out of the spotlight? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. To enjoy more exciting videos, click play on the video on your screen. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you get notified when a new video drops.